Hello, everyone. I am Bhakti Kothari from Indian Mastermind, and today's guest is someone who is literally living every wildlife lover's dream. She's walked through the wild trails of Kaziranga, worked in the magical forests of Manas, and dedicated her life to protecting India's most incredible creatures. She is a topper of the Indian Forest Service, a PhD scholar, and honestly, a total powerhouse when it comes to wildlife conservation. From rescuing rhinos to rehabilitating clouded leopards, she's done it all. So let's welcome Dr. Sonali Ghosh, an IFS officer who proves that passion and persistence can truly make a difference one forest at a time. So, ma'am, you have been on the front line at Kaziranga for years now, and आप फर्स्ट वुमेन फील्ड डायरेक्टर भी थी काजीरंगा के. आप 2023 में आपको ये पोस्ट मिली थी. So, can you please take us through this journey of yours?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Bhakti. And first of all, big thank you to Masterminds, India Masterminds, and the entire team for acknowledging us, for acknowledging the teamwork which is happening in Kaziranga. And as I've been saying to everybody, I seem to be fortunate enough to be the name and face associated with the glory of Kaziranga.
Yeah.
For me, this has been a sort of a great, fulfilling journey.
Hmm.
As you know, that Indian Forest Service, it assigns cadres. It's
Yeah.
basically, I'm from Uttarakhand, but I was allotted the Assam cadre when
Hmm.
I qualified for the service in the year 2000. And since 2002, I have been serving in Assam and with a short period of deputation
Hmm.
and study leave which I took. So it was very, it's like I would say that it's very, very fortunate chance that I have got the opportunity to serve twice in Kaziranga.
Yeah.
I started my journey in Kaziranga in the year 2002.
Hmm.
I was a probationer here. I trained under Mr. N.K. Vasu, who then went on to become the PCCF and head of Forest Force in Assam. And so you can imagine that it has been a great learning experience because I have seen Kaziranga both from the lens of a young forest officer, who has to do day-to-day firefighting, to now when I am the field director, I have to, take up policy matters. I have to take up, different sort of, I have to look at the management of the park more than the field day-to-day, journeys. So this is what we have to do
Hmm.
in.
Right.
So that has been my journey.
That's amazing, ma'am. And one thing that is, absolutely famous about Kaziranga that you can say is that it's central to the global rhino survival. So, what is the single
Yes.
most important change that you have introduced here for rhino protection specifically?
Yeah, I mean, actually, you know, as you're aware that Kaziranga has 70% of the global rhino population
Yeah.
in the world,
Yeah.
and if we look at the history of Kaziranga from 1905 to now,
Hmm.
it is more than 120 years. There was a time in the year 1905, people say that there were probably less than 25 rhinos.
Hmm.
And the 1966, when the first rhino census happened, there were around 300 plus
Hmm.
rhinos which were counted. So
Hmm.
now we are at 3,000 plus,
Hmm.
So this has been a remarkable, remarkable conservation success story in our country,
Hmm.
in the world rather,
Hmm.
where, the Kaziranga model of conservation has helped in the rhino protection and rhino conservation.
Hmm.
So for me, I have continued the legacy, if I may say so,
Hmm.
and we have been, and since when I joined in 23, it was already a park where, good things have happened inside the park, so we've
Hmm.
had great infrastructure, we've had good roads, we've got good surveillance systems, we have great, human resource and staffing in the park.
Hmm.
I think the one slight change, or for that matter, the slight add-on, which I have been able to, get into is the community, interface.
Yeah.
So because my predecessors, because the forest frontline, the department had worked so hard to get the park intact, I was able to channelize my energies to work outside the park with the forest fringe communities. And I think that is perhaps, I would say, something which is working well, and we have miles to go. But our idea of involving the communities for rhino conservation, for rhino protection, is something that I am keen for doing, and we are doing currently.
Right, ma'am. And you remember the 2024 floods that happened? They were a very, very big challenge for the Kaziranga National Park, I believe. At that time, you did so much for the park. You converted anti-poaching camps into rescue hubs. You created wildlife corridors. So much you were doing. So, what were the biggest logistical challenges, and how did you and your team overcome them?
Yes. So, the floods in Kaziranga are an annual phenomena,
Yeah.
It's something like we see in many of our wildlife series, so it's an annual migration and floodplain because Kaziranga is the Brahmaputra floodplain. So, what happens is that the Brahmaputra waters, when they come into the park, then the animals move from the park boundaries to highlands, to hill areas, the Karbi Anglong. So for us, the flood is good. It's something which is important because it's a floodplain ecosystem. So if the floods are there, then our water bodies are charged. If the floods are there, then the grasslands are intact. We do not have, succession of woodlands. So we have enough food or habitat for the animals, the wild animals, and especially the mega herbivores, if we have the floods.
Yeah.
Now, but there are some times when there is a very high flood, a mild flood or a sort of a, like not very dangerous floods are all right. But sometimes the flood waters, and especially when they are, they comes out of, suddenly, like a flash flood, then it's a challenge because we do get a lot many animals, either they die due to the flooding or because of the National Highway 715, which is at the boundary. It's not the
Yeah.
boundary, but it is adjoining the boundary of the national park. So all animals, they start moving, suddenly into the high hill areas, and there is likely to be accidents, road accidents,
Right.
and speeding and so on. And of course, there is conflict. So in case of 24, in July 24 and August 24, we had one of the high floods which broke the 1991 records.
Yeah.
So it was a very big flood. It was massive, and we had to sort of really proactively sort of plan out. We were very fortunate that Honorable Chief Minister of Assam, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma, took a pre-flood meeting on 15th of June. So it was something where every organization, every department, we were sort of geared up that, okay, if the floods come in, then this is what we will do. And to respond to your question that what were the biggest challenges, it was the traffic management on the national highway.
Right.
Now, this national highway is the lifeline for Upper Assam. It's the National Highway 715. Around 35 kilometer of stretch passes along the national park, and it was very, very important that we sort of control the traffic, regulate the traffic rather than completely stopping it, especially in the
Absolutely.
animal corridor areas.
Absolutely.
So had like an interdepartmental coordination, the police, the traffic department, and a convoy system was initially, provided in during the high flood time. We used technology, for example, the sensors which we have along our corridors. We used thermal drones. We used a lot many, manpower, and we also got some voluntary support from colleges, from NGOs. So in all, it worked, and because of the wonderful, sort of support and the coordination, we had excellent result because we had only one case of mortality of hog deer, which was a road accident. And
Hmm.
we were able to, sort of everything else was fine. And it was only one case of a road accident during the flood. So, which we
Hmm.
think is a great achievement. Yes.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, moving on, women rangers and local guardians are increasingly visible in Kaziranga right now. So, how has involving more women changed the operations or the community relations with you and your team?
Yeah. See, it is very, very important that when we say about assimilation or inclusive participation, it becomes very important to have women take part in all sort of, aspects of the park management.
Hmm.
So be it, let's say, in the front line, be it in the decision making, be it in the, the community stakeholdership. And I think it is very important to make conscious efforts to do it because, how do I put it? Like, let's say, if I say, keep the example of Indian Forest Service. Now, Indian Forest Service was way back in 1866, that's
Hmm.
when the Imperial Forest Service came in. In the initial years, if I'm sure you're aware, it was a service which was opened to army officers, to, explorers, to
Hmm.
geographers, because they thought that, okay, this is the romanticism which is associated with forest.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you have to go and you have to explore.
Hmm.
So obviously there was very limited scope for women. It
Hmm.
was like it was considered a dangerous and an adventurous job.
Hmm.
And this continued over the period. And once the Indian Forest Service was revived in 1966, even then there were no women,
Hmm.
in the service. And there were very, what to say, technical reasons why they were not there.
Yeah.
It was like it was a service where you had to have a certain height
Hmm.
and so on. So because of these hurdles, we never had women until 1980.
Hmm.
So in 1980, we had three women IFS officers, enrolled for the
Hmm.
first time in the history of the entire Forest Service.
Yeah.
And since then to now, I think we are roughly around 300 to 350
Hmm.
Indian Forest Service women officers out of the entire pool of around 3,000,
Hmm.
right? So it is still less than 10%,
Hmm.
but it is important. It is important to have because we, as I said, it's about inclusivity. It's about, having the gender perspective. And that's why women become very important.
Hmm.
Now, having said that, in the front line, it was even more difficult. And the reason being that in frontline, the conditions, the working conditions can be tough. They are tough. I
Absolutely.
mean, denial of this that, you have less space, it's crowding, there is, very limited sanitation, hygiene, and,
Hmm.
and so on. So some stuff for having women. And even more so if the woman is of a certain age and is married and has having children.
Hmm.
So it becomes for them to come into the park and be there.
Hmm.
Now, all this changed in the year 22, 23, when Assam did this massive recruitment of forest frontline. And again, there over 300 women were recruited. And
Hmm.
these young girls, who are basically from rural, countryside, they are extremely capable.
Hmm.
They got the sort of a police training, the women, the military training as their male counterparts.
Hmm.
So they are so empowered. They have the same training either to do of forest patrolling or of weapons handling and so on. So
Hmm.
they have equipped with that, and around 100 of them joined Kaziranga National Park.
Hmm.
And it was very, very fortunate time for us that Honorable Prime Minister, he visited the park on 9th of March 2024
Yeah.
just one day after Day, he met these forest frontline and he gave them the name of Van Durgas. So I think that really gave us a big impetus. And today, these women frontline, these Van Durgas, are doing the same sort of duty as their male counterparts.
Hmm.
Of course, we have tried to also bank upon their other skills, their soft skills of being communicators, of being very well tourist guides and so on. So we have been able to get a sort of an advantage and a win-win by having these women.
Right.
And when these women interact with their community people, it becomes even more easier because, as I said, that most of these frontline are from rural backgrounds. So for them, they connect in terms of, the requirements, the, sort of what is there for the frontline. Yeah.
Right, ma'am. And which is also a very, very great initiative in itself, if you look at it in a way. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
now one thing that comes, that becomes very prominent in every national park or sanctuary that we take is poaching. So, like poaching networks are often linked to cross-border trade. So, how do you coordinate with police or the neighboring states or international partners to stop this trafficking?
You're absolutely right, Bhakti. Actually, Kaziranga model of conservation is that, it has been able to, despite the fact that we have the world's largest population of the one-horned rhino, we have been able to curb the poaching of the rhinos from a time when there was more than 55 in a year to almost zero
Yeah.
poaching in the state. So that is the sort of importance or the sort of the prestige or the pride
Hmm.
which the rhino holds for the state of Assam and for the country.
Hmm.
And of course, this has not been possible alone. It had to be done with the support of police, with the support of the political will, which is very important. And again, in Assam, we had the revival of the anti-poaching task force,
Yeah.
which is headed by the DGP of the police. The members are all the senior officials of forest department, of the police department, and there has been a very, very close sort of communication, networking, and information exchange, which has been able to preempt and prevent, any of these poachings. You will be happy to know that in the last 2 years, we have been able to thwart at least 10, poaching attempts
Oh,
into
wow.
the park, and with, evidence that,
Hmm.
these were being planned. And now we are heading towards the longest period of zero poaching, so God willing, we'll have, very soon the longest period ever of the park where we have not had a poaching.
That's
Yes.
amazing, ma'am. That's really, really good news. I mean, I believe
Thank you.
whatever you are doing in Kaziranga needs to be followed elsewhere also because this poaching thing, it's a hassle. I mean, it's one of the most, I think one of the biggest headaches that it could give to an Indian Forest Service officer. But I'm really happy to hear
Yeah.
that number. And having said that, tourism is also rising in the state, also in the park, also everywhere these days. So, how do you balance your visitor access and revenue with rhino safety along with habitat protection?
Right. So, tourism is, of course, I mean, to me, I know I'm a supporter of tourism because they are our eyes and ears.
Hmm.
We are in public service. We are these beautiful landscapes
Hmm.
are something which we need to, pass on to the communities, to the people, to the children,
Hmm.
so that they appreciate nature.
Yeah.
So tourism is important, and this is besides the revenue aspect, like in Kaziranga alone, uh, we have we have over 800, the safari vehicles which are in the Kaziranga landscape, and they are entirely owned by the communities.
Yeah.
So on an app, even if I sort of calculate remotely, it is like more than 2,000 families are directly involved with the Kaziranga for their
Hmm.
livelihood.
Hmm.
This is their bread and butter
Hmm.
because they act as drivers, they act as tour guides, they act as people who
Hmm.
sort of get that. There
Hmm.
are more than around 200 homestays, hotels, resorts.
Hmm.
Again, that is a big source of employment for the local communities.
Hmm.
So definitely the tourism is something which is a boon. It is something which needs to be encouraged. Now the question comes of, let's say, mass tourism, carrying capacity, getting the tourism to diversify and not just say focus only on the, animal safari, but on other aspects. So that is where I think the challenge lies. And we have been working towards it. And in the last 2 years, again, I mean, yes, last year we were the third most visited park in the country,
Right.
so
Right.
with over 5 lakh tourists.
Hmm.
And so the question always remains, have we reached the carrying capacity?
Hmm.
Well, it will take us a while to understand whether we have. But yes, like for example, now Kaziranga is not just the central range or the western range. It is beyond that. And our effort is to sensitize, is to educate the people that it is not just that, you have to go and see a tiger and a rhino and come back. But there are other aspects. There are other aspects of Kaziranga. Let's say the dolphins conservation in the Brahmaputra River, or for that matter, the community-based tourism aspect. So these are the things which we are able to showcase, and that is what our efforts will be on. Yeah.
That's amazing, ma'am. And you also recently made history as the first Indian to win the WCPA Kenton Miller Award, and you were also honored with the prestigious Eco Warrior Award. So, what does it mean to you personally and for Kaziranga?
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much. Actually, this is indeed a global honor, and I'm really, really sort of humbled by the recognition, because this is entirely for the teamwork.
Hmm.
It is not just that it is for me. But yeah, personally, it's a sort of a validation. It's a sort of a satisfaction that the last 25 years which I have spent more or less in wildlife conservation, in sort of, wildlife management, that yes, it is okay. I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
And that, globally, the efforts which we have put in the country, the efforts which we have put in Assam, in Kaziranga, in Manas, in other areas, they are getting acknowledged. So it's a great humbling experience.
That's amazing, ma'am. And one side you're earning all these awards, and the other side, your photos and your videos of wading mud, water, and slush have been going viral. So, despite being such a high-ranking officer, why and how have you been hitting the ground so often now?
Well, honestly, Bhakti, a forester's boots is something which is very, very important, that they have mud on the boots.
Yeah.
Whether we are high ranking, whether we are low ranking, I think it is entirely about how much are we connected. And that's something which I have learned from my teachers, from my mentors, from my training in the Forest Academy at the Wildlife Institute. And that's why the more I'm able to connect to the forest, I think the more I am able to understand it. So I keep saying this to young people that, nature is like a book,
Hmm.
and every page that we read through, there is a learning. But, the next, when you turn the leaf over leaf, there is something new to learn.
Yeah.
So I guess this is something which one should never do away with, despite, age or weight or anything else. But yeah, yes, yeah.
Right, ma'am. And having said that, are there any specific projects or scaling up efforts that you are looking forward to fast track right now?
Yes, I am very, very keen that we are able to do something with communities. So I'm trying that, and I'm also trying to do something which we can scale up, or it gets into a replicable model. You
Yeah.
know, what happens is that we can do things which are, nice. You know, it's like, okay, we have done this. This is a nice product, water hyacinth, and all that. But let's say the officer moves out or the funding moves out, and then again there is a slump. And this is what happens for any new initiative,
Hmm.
and especially new initiative which is at a small scale.
Hmm.
I'm very much a small scale to be replicated into, large scale person. I
Hmm.
feel that we should try out first, and even if there are failures, we learn from it and we, improve and we move on.
Yeah.
So this is something which I have been trying, and we are trying to get the confidence, the trust of the communities. You know,
Hmm.
unless the communities take ownership of what we want them to do, or take up, it will not be successful. And it is not easy. You know, this trust comes in when you actually go and do hands on with them. It comes in when they see that there is a benefit in it. It comes in when they see that, yes, this is something which will help me as well as the wild animals.
Right.
So we have been working on this. We have been working with women, especially from alternative livelihood sort of aspects. We are looking at water hyacinth and its value addition, removal, and linking it to climate change. We are linking it to a livelihood support and sort of mitigation from invasive species. So we are doing it. We have spread it everywhere. You know, we are trying everywhere some different sort of experiments, and there will be some good ones, some not so good ones, but we'll learn and we'll take it forward. Yes.
That's amazing, ma'am. And also, I think you have a fully bureaucratic family, right? So, like pretty much all the time you're out in the wild, in the nature. So, how do you manage your work-life balance between all of this?
Yeah, I know, Bhakti. That's a very important question. I think it's tough. Honestly, it's tough, and I realized that the time, especially when you have the Josh, when you got sort of you have the health and everything as a young person, that's also the time for women when they have to take care of the children. Okay,
Right.
so it happened for me as well. You know, I was a young DFO, and I had like a 1.5-year-old daughter. I mean,
Hmm.
I'd just come out back from my, leave,
Hmm.
and it was tough. It was not easy. But
Yeah.
I think it's great to have the family support. So my husband was the sort of, the mother and the father, and he said that, I'll take care of her. You
Hmm.
just go ahead and move around in the jungles.
Yeah.
So I think I was lucky that way, that I got the right support during the right time, because many people don't, many
True.
women officers are not able to get that kind of support when you need them most.
Hmm.
And now when I am back, I'm sort of, elderly. My daughter is sort of settled.
Hmm.
My husband is also a bureaucrat. He's in a different location.
Hmm.
So we are at peace with our personal lives, we are
Yeah.
like sort of okay. And that's why I'm able to devote time,
Hmm.
into this. So yeah, this whole work-life balance and is very important.
Hmm.
It's very important to, and especially for women, to take care of their health.
Hmm.
I think I realized this after getting a big jolt. I survived cancer,
Oh.
and I think I got this cancer because of my lifestyle. I won't blame anybody else. It
Hmm.
was just to do with my entire lifestyle of desk jobs,
Okay.
so when you are sitting and doing a job and not taking care of your health, or not doing so, it's likely that you become more vulnerable, and that's what exactly happened to me. And but then as they say कि जोर का झटका जब लगता है तब दिमाग खुलता है.
Hmm.
So I think it was taken in as a okay, fine. आज की तारीख में ऐसा सभी को कुछ ना कुछ होता रहता है. So I
Hmm.
took that in my stride. I sort of came out of it. And then, now I'm very, very conscious about my health. I sort of, try to maintain it. And I realized that Kaziranga is the best place with the pure oxygen and the pure water, and
Absolutely.
the sense of peace that we get here. I
Hmm.
think it's a lot of support to my happiness and my health.
Right.
So this is what I advise to every woman, that take care of your health, which is
Right.
important. Yeah.
I did not know that you have cancer also. You're a cancer survivor. I mean, that's a very big thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you. Because yes, it came in as a jolt, and it was a tough time, especially when you look at the entire course of the, treatment. I think the
Right.
treatment is more difficult than the chemotherapy and the
Hmm.
radiation. But like I said, I mean, these days I mean, and especially with cancer, they say it's early detection is the cure.
Hmm.
And I've had some great doctors, and then I was able to network with fellow cancer survivors, and they all sort of, so there's a big sort of a network of women, and
Hmm.
especially working women, and, people women at important positions, who are
Hmm.
able to connect and tell about, what to do, what not to do.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's a conscious sort of a, that yes, it's a willpower, ultimately, which is able to, help in this. Yeah.
So now you're completely cancer free, right?
Yes, I have completed the entire treatment course. I am still on the medication, which will last for the next 5 years or so.
Hmm.
But yeah, technically, I mean, I'm careful. I do my checkups. So, I think I am cancer free. Yes,
I
thank
mean, I
you.
hope
Yeah,
so. But
yeah, yes.
anyway, very hearty congratulations to you for not just for, all the work that you do, but also for the kind of lifestyle that you maintain, and the fact that, you're almost cancer free now, which is a very good thing. And I wish and I hope the best for you in the future also. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, ma'am. It was lovely speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Bhakti, and wish you all the best and happy festival greetings for everything.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, please keep up the good work. Thank you for acknowledging and lauding all of us in the field, and doing these stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Lovely speaking with you always. Thank you so much. From the wild landscapes of the Kaziranga to the revival stories of Manis, Dr. Sonali Ghosh's journey shows how one person's dedication can spark real change. If her story inspired you, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Indian Masterminds for more stories of such extraordinary officers making an extraordinary impact. Until next time, this is Bhakti Kothari signing off. Thank you for watching.